All right, now we chatting.
Triangle.
Chatting at the mountain.
The triangle of sadness.
No other shape will do. Okay.
Oh, friggin' hell.
Habibi.
What's up? How are you?
I'm the circle of sadness.
Whoa.
I got a rotund shape going in my mid region.
My midriff is a circle of sadness.
My midriff is a circle of sadness. That is true.
We have some important film news.
What's bobbin'?
We saw a film this week.
We saw a film.
A new film by a director who we've covered in the past.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this film was critically acclaimed, so
we can
couldn't
never
do it on
talk
the pod.
about it.
But we can talk about it here. We saw Civil War.
How fun was that movie, dude?
Good, but I'm starting to think I might have had a more tempered response to it than everyone we went with. I thought it was a really, really good movie.
Yeah.
But I think it's his third best film of the four.
Okay.
And it's his least interesting, thematically.
Sure. I mean, it's more
straightforward.
real, and it's more everyday possibility of something becoming real.
I think it's way more straight down the line than I expected a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's really good, and I have to say, when Cailee Spaeny catches Mjolnir at the end, absolute chills.
Yeah.
It was an absolutely...
Catches the what?
Mjolnir, the hammer, Thor's hammer.
There you go.
When she catches it.
Yeah,
total chills down my spine.
Totally.
Yeah, much like when Thor caught his own hammer in Avengers and
I think you're thinking of the Civil War where Captain America caught the Mjolnir.
When Thor caught his hammer in Avengers Ender's Game.
Did you just say Avengers Ender's Game?
Ender's Game.
Ender's Game.
You know, the sci-fi book, by that guy who's really difficult.
Yeah. Ready Player One, Ender's Game. Okay.
Anyway, Civil War is a really good movie.
I think Civil War's last hour or what, like, who even knows? That movie went by in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
It was so incredibly well paced, but some of the best fucking gunfire sounds I've heard in a movie in a long time. And that alone was enough to kind of keep me going just at the edge of my seat.
The noise and the sound design of it was like
stellar.
It was so it felt, I don't know anything about guns, but it felt like real in the way that, like, you know, that whole legendary thing about Heat where they're like, oh, those guns, that sounds like real guns, like in the shootout and stuff. And it reminded me of that in a lot of ways. Yeah, it was a very, very good movie. Probably, I'm predicting it'll be one of my favorites of the year, I think.
Easily.
Even though it's going to be a great year, but like, I really like Alex Garland, and as soon as it like comes on streaming or wherever it'll be, like I'll watch it in a heartbeat. I think it was a really good movie. I thought Dunst was amazing.
What a power.
I thought Spaeny was really, really like. Spaany's such a good performer.
Yeah,
he's so good.
Came out of nowhere. After Devs, I think this is the only thing I've seen him in, and
they were great, and they make you feel really old because Cailee Spaeny still looks like a 14-year-old.
Just like just the picture of youth, but probably in mid-20s, I'd say.
Yeah, and I thought I love Wagner Moura.
Oh my god!
And I've never seen Narcos like full of it.
Oh,
can I just say one thing about Wagner Moura that like I've thought for a really long time?
Yeah,
he's in the film Elysian, the middling film by the guy who made District 9, right? Mm-hmm. And Elysium is like an alright movie. We'll cover it. We should cover it one day on the pod. I kind of like Elysium. I think it's like
is it the Matt Damon one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I think it's not bad. Wagner Moura plays the character named Spider in that.
Okay.
I will say right now, he should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Fuck yeah.
He's amazing in Elysium.
He's so good.
And that was the first I ever saw him, and I think he's fantastic in Civil War. Yeah.
He absolutely rules as Pablo Escobar in Narcos. I don't know if he like gained real weight or if it's a fat suit or what, The man looks like a god in this movie. He is just like in the best shape.
One of the leading mustaches in the biz.
100%. Yeah. It's he's the you know what? I'm going to say it. He's like a hotter Pedro Pascal.
And to be frank, almost pretty much as good of an actor.
Yes. Yeah.
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 I love Pedro Pascal. Nothing against Pedro,
good.
But Wagner Moura feels like how we talked about Jamie Dornan. How it's like Wagner Moura is such a close second to Pedro Pascal.
Totally.
But like so many of his roles, it's like, oh, yeah, I could see Wagner Moura in Triple Frontier. You know, like.
What a fucking, first of all, sick name, Wagner.
Oh, yeah, dude.
What a beautiful name. And then also, we don't want to pit two queens against each other. Okay, they could both thrive, and they're doing great. And it's just amazing to see him in as kind of almost a lead in this. That's great.
Yeah, I really liked him. I thought the whole cast was amazing.
Civil War rules, and it's best consumed at the cinemas. So watch it there.
Yeah, and it's like I think. As with most summers, it's the last like really good movie for a little while because all the summer movies are going to be exactly what they are, which is
they're going to catch a Mjolnir, baby. You don't know.
There's going to be lots of Mjolnir catching. I think when Caesar the Ape does it in the Rise of the Kingdom of the Fall of the Planet of the Apes, chills.
He catches it while on a horse.
Yeah,
monkey on a horse.
Apes stronger with hammer. That's the tagline of that film. Yeah.
More Thor.
I have to say though, I think that movie looks like it'll be good because I thought I've seen two of the Planet of the Apes films and they're both very good. Like I like them both. It's just I probably won't go see it in theaters. That's all. But they're good movies. So.
They're fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's it. Nothing else good is coming out. Anyway, today we're talking about another good movie.
Yeah.
We're talking about one of the higher rated movies we've ever talked about, but also a movie with significant problems.
Yeah, man. Look, a beloved film, little known film called The Triangle of Sadness.
Triangle of Sadness. A movie that I was not easy on
yeah.
last year.
But on second watch, I feel the same that I felt about it at first, which is the third act falls apart for me.
Suffers, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But the movie starts in the most exciting way that it made my heart flutter to no end.
Still great.
Still one of the best openings.
I love it.
One of the most fucking riotous middles. And then, all right, it ends. But it's still worth watching for the first two acts.
It's a good movie. I was hard on it last year. I think what I said, I listened to my own podcast. If I can quote myself, I said, it's a dumb movie for dumb people to feel smart about something. Something along those lines. And I don't know if I feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
I do think it's not a very serious film.
It's not.
But I've also watched a lot of Ruben Ostlund's kind of interviews and stuff. And the thing is like Ruben Ostlund I'm not saying he's not a serious filmmaker, but he's so much more like takes himself less seriously than you'd think, which is great. And one thing like he said in this interview, I think with a person, some film critic who I like, where he was like, people think that they're gonna like sit down with me at dinner and I'm gonna be like this like misanthrope, but I'm not. I'm actually like I really like people and I am just a good guy. and when you watch like interviews with him and stuff, he's like that. He's like a pretty joyous guy. And I really like admire a lot of the work he did in this movie, and a lot of it I'm just kind of like, you could cut that one, cut that out. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The thing with Triangle of Sadness, similar in ways to Saltburn, I think, is that it just tells the audience every single thing in the most unsubtle way, and it doesn't really let you take a hint. So when there's portions of the movie where it's like, isn't it crazy that they just do it for the Instagram? They're doing it for the pictures. The youth.
Yeah, that stuff is, I think, not good.
The over-explaining of like stuff that we all just understand. But I think that might be a little bit for the boomer audience.
Yeah, maybe. I think can I say something? Because I did write down Saltburn in relation to this film.
Oh, interesting.
Is that and we're contractually obligated to mention Saltburn in every single episode of our podcast, because from here on out, I kind of think that every film can and should be compared to that piece of shit forever. No, like I have to say in Saltburn's defense, Triangle of Sadness is like doing this thing where it's like wealthy people are fucking
crazy rich Aryans, am I right?
Goofs, right? Bunch of goofballs.
Yeah.
But Saltburn is more fun than this.
Totally.
And more like, and they're even zanier. But then it's like in this zeitgeist, which is happening with a lot of media, where it's like these wealthy people are so goofy. But like Saltburn is more fun, and something like Succession or The White Lotus is just better. Like they're just a better version of that, where you're like, yeah, well, they're more specific and they're more focused, and it makes more sense. Like, but I think they're all in like the same genre.
It is,
which I think is so funny, which I mentioned in the Academy Award pod, because it's like, well, lots of like the Academy, for example, it's like, well, a lot of them are pretty wealthy people.
Yeah, like,
yeah. You know,
it's like the meme, we live in a society became a movie.
Kind of,
right?
Yeah. And I think there's this thing, especially with Charbli Dean, and Charbli passed away like 2 weeks before this film was premiered, which is very tragic.
So fucked up.
At 32 from like this freak complication from, she had her spleen removed in a car accident.
Oh my
God. That was
God.
very tragic, because I want to talk more about her.
She plays Yaya in the movie.
She's fantastic in this film, and I want to talk more about her. And then Harris Dickinson, who's gone on to be great. I mean, he's an Iron Claw, which he's awesome in. There's something about their characters, which I'm glad they expand to more characters, because after a while it kind of is like, aren't these dumb people dumb? Isn't that funny how dumb they are?
That's what I'm saying.
And I'm a little bit like, not really.
Yeah.
And the counterpoint to it, which I think is more effective, and I kind of feel better about in this second rewatch, is like, it's not really fun to watch like dumb rich people be dumb and rich.
Yes.
And also it's like, there's, what kind of catharsis do you get to make fun of them? Because it's like, yeah, they don't know that. Like, they don't know any better. Dmitri, played by Zlatko Buric, the Russian for this shit seller.
Yeah.
He's the counterpoint. He knows better. He knows he's full of shit.
Correct.
He sells shit.
Yeah.
And like, that becomes a lot more interesting when you add that dynamic, because he's the real rich person target that you want to go after, because he's such a fucking useless guy who's like, yeah, I'm kind of an asshole. Like, I'm kind of the worst type of person.
Or the guy who makes the bombs, that couple.
Yeah, and the catharsis is that they get blown up by their own grenade, which is really funny. Yeah. Babe, they don't make weapons. You make products that uphold democracy around the world.
You're right. You're
which
right.
is like one of the. It's such a good line. Yeah.
Oh man, I actually really like the part where everybody looks at the camera and they go, "Hey, what are you, some kind of triangle of sadness?" My face went from H&M to Balenciaga so fast.
Just oh my God, speaking of that, so I watched a lot of like YouTube videos of Ruben Ostlund from that year, because he was busy. Big movie, huge thing. Got nominated for Best Picture. He was nominated for Best Director. This movie was like really well received. There is a video, and anyone can watch this. It's like the BAFTA screenwriters lecture series or some shit, and they have Ruben Ostlund doing a talk. He comes out and he's wearing like a black blazer, but he's got a white shirt underneath. And if you look closely, it's a shirt with a picture of all of those models doing the H&M face.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And I was like, oh, I want that shirt.
I want that shirt
so badly.
Look, that fucking opening scene is my absolute favorite.
I think that I was like, this movie's going to be amazing.
That's what I
never lives
thought.
up to that.
No, because then it starts off as this like tonally like snarky and very European kind of humor, and you wait for it to kind of stay subtle like that. And then they spoon feed you a little bit through the course of the film,
and it just goes on forever.
And that's fine, and it's good enough. It's like raucous enough. You get through it. It's fun, and it's fun speculating about the ending towards the end.
Yeah, which we can do later.
We'll do later. Okay.
But sorry, go on.
I just want to say that it does really feel like White Flotus, I guess, because they're on the island. Like, it takes that show and it puts these characters in that similar situation. So we're seeing the same genre, but it doesn't quite get to the level of Succession.
No.
Because like, can you imagine Tom Wamsgams at the fucking island in Triangle of Sadness?
Yeah.
Kendall Roy just being like, I could just kill every single one of you.
One of the reasons I think Saltburn is kind of more fun is because it is more ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which it works for it. Like, I kind of like that about Saltburn. Whereas White Lotus, especially the first season of White Lotus, it just feels so realistic.
Yeah.
Right? It feels
uncomfortable.
Like... And because, like, most of them are, like, upper middle class people. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of like, yeah, I've kind of been around people like this in my life.
Yeah.
Whereas Succession, one of the things I find... And I don't know if people feel this way, but, like, one of the things I find so effective about Succession is, like, they're so insanely wealthy.
Yeah.
And they're huge assholes. And they're also, like, assholes because of their stupidity in lots of ways.
Right.
And yet they almost never get the comeuppance you really want. Because, like, some of those guys is like, you just wish someone would punch them. And it kind of never happens.
Yeah.
And because of their wealth. And so you get this constant, like, stop and start when you're like, I want that to happen so bad, but it never does. This movie
tries to, like, be like, aren't the rich the worst, guys?
But what's successful about it is it's like, we're gonna lay out how goofy they are and then completely humiliate them.
Yeah.
With the food, the dinner and everything.
Sure.
And then further, like, humiliate, like, highlight their uselessness on the island. All of which I think is very well done.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that it's like, as I think I said in the theater, I was like, by the time they beat the donkey to death, I'm like, that's kind of symbolic of what's happening in this movie.
Man, a good year for donkeys.
No.
Well, Banshees of Inisherin.
Sorry, or whatever, EO, was nominated for an Academy Award. Okay. It's like a documentary. I think they follow a donkey. And when
that's right.
When that donkey catches Mjolnir,
yeah,
chills.
Donkey Thor catches a Mjolnir. You don't even see it coming.
Yeah, dude.
Catches it with his mouth.
His donkey mouth, his strong donkey mouth.
That's why we need Shrek back.
But yeah, like, it. By the time that's kind of come around, you're just kind of like, man, there's like 25 more minutes of this, and it's just not great, you know. At one point, it turns into the movie Parasite, but on a boat, and that's like the narrative going into it. You're just like, once they take the attention away from Carl and Yaya's dynamic as like hot people who want to split the bill. Yeah.
Into hot people trying to exist on a boat and just do their influencer shit and, you know, survive among other rich people.
Yeah. Who are way wealthier than they are.
Way wealthier.
Yeah.
So then, like, once it becomes a class, the attention takes over to, like, the class issue.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a little more boring for me. Because I'm like, you're already telling me everything that every movie has ever said.
I think there's like a period kind of from the beginning of The Yacht until Woody Harrelson gets on the intercom where I'm like, this is like a really good film.
Yeah.
You know, but it'll dip into these moments that just aren't as good. And I think we should go through the plot because I have a lot to say more in relation to like specific scenes.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, before we do that, I do have to point out this is our second major model feature in our series of films about models besides Neon Demon. So
hell yeah.
Neon Demon, better film, better Scandinavian.
See, yeah, dude. Yeah.
We open at this like model tryout thing, that was inspired by Ruben Ostlund's wife, who's a fashion photographer.
Yeah. Like
all of these stories from her. And we have Carl with all these guys doing this, like, I don't even know what to call it. I have no experience with this kind of stuff. It's kind of an audition, but they're like being interviewed by a guy too. Mm-hmm. But that seems to be part of the audition. That scene is like my favorite scene in the film.
Absolutely.
I think it's so funny. And it's
powerful opening.
The guy who's doing the interviewing is hilarious.
Yeah.
He's so fucking amazing.
Tight.
And like when he's doing like the H&M and Balenciaga and stuff, it's so good, man. And
so that already is like the first introduction to the theme of the movie is that you're happier when you're making less money, quote unquote, H&M.
Yeah.
And then when you're within this obscene amount of wealth that you have to then fucking buy an ugly piece of plastic shit like Balenciaga.
yeah.
Which is deliberately sometimes made to be uncomfortable for the wearer.
Yeah.
So you sit more upright and you walk a certain way. I don't know. I don't fucking own Balenciaga, but like, that shit ugly. That's why you look sad.
Babe, jeez, don't
Sorry,
don't
Kanye.
alienate all our Balenciaga
Don't come for my throat.
And then so he has like an audition, a lone audition, and there's a subtle thing where it's like he shows them that he's been in this ad for this cologne, and they're like, oh, but you're still doing these auditions, right?
Yeah.
Which is like a kind of a dig at like maybe he's not having as much success as you'd think, even though Harris Dickinson is hot as hell.
100%.
What a guy.
100%.
So he does the walk, and then you get the title drop, which is great from the guy.
Yeah.
So this scene always reminds me, I think it's great, but it reminds me of one of my favorite scenes in How I Met Your Mother, when Robin is trying to do the bingo ball draw thing, and she's like auditioning for it, and she keeps like pulling out the numbers and announcing them, and then the guy won't talk to her, but he'll whisper to his assistant, and he's like why is she doing it that way?
Why is she here?
It's like she seems angry about the ball. Like
now she seems sad. She seems more sad.
Yeah, it's such a fucking good scene, man. But it reminded me a lot of that, and then we go to the infamous the Czech scene, the dinner scene.
Perfect.
Which I watched a video of Ruben Ostlund like breaking it down and stuff. It was really cool.
Yeah.
There's like I think it's on Variety. It's like Variety's YouTube channel. You can look up like Ruben Ostlund. It's like a 12-minute video of him like watching the scene, and he breaks down like what he did with it. It's very cool, but he talks about Yaya's character, Charbli Dean, and how Charbli Dean has to she has to do something so difficult in this movie where she has to be able to turn on being high status and then also be like low status later.
Yeah.
Because she gets like kind of humiliated.
Yeah.
I think there's this part that I love where Carl, Harris Dickinson's character, he's like, it cuts to him and he has this scowl on his face that's just so fucking good.
It's so good.
And then but Charbli Dean, she delivers this fucking line. She's so good in this scene. And like she delivers this line where she's like I could just get out a calculator and like do it right now. And, and it's like how goofy, like the way she plays it off is so insulting and so demeaning to him. And it's like, oh man, she's amazing in this scene.
Yeah.
But anyway, they argue over the check, and this is also inspired by Ruben Ostlund's real life. Apparently, this happened between him and his wife. Yeah.
My God.
The thing he points out is later in the elevator, when she puts the $50 bill in his shirt, he was like, my wife did that to me. And he did exactly what Carl does, where he stuffed it in the elevator shaft.
That shit had me at the edge of my seat. I've never been more uncomfortable.
Oh man, it's so funny though.
It's so beautifully done.
The elevator specifically, when he's like slamming
trying to have a conversation
open and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's also like such a brilliant kind of, it's like a brilliant little thing where it's like, yeah, maybe this guy's not the brightest person, you know?
So that's what I'm saying. That's the kind of fucking tone they should have had for the rest of the film, where you're like clearly touching on economic inequality, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
And the audience knows this, you know it. But then it turns into this like kind of a snub-nosed like attitude.
It gets a little preachy.
Yeah,
that's
and there's
the problem. Yeah,
total lack of nuance or subtlety, which is where the funny comes from.
But there are some nuanced parts that we'll talk about that I'm like, yeah, those are the best parts of the film.
Yeah.
Is when like and I want to get to one very specifically later. But anyway, they kind of make up, and they're like, you kind of figure out that this is like a relationship of convenience, but Carl's like, oh, I really do care for you, and I'll make you love me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like then cut to, I love the way the yacht scene opens with this like private helicopter flies in and drops an ominous briefcase, and then they open it and it's Nutella for that fucking Russian guy.
Love it. I love it.
And there's an incredible scene. We kind of like set up a couple scenes just to get the layout of the yacht. But there's this amazing scene when we meet Vicky Berlin, who plays Paula, the manager. Mm-hmm. What does Dolly De Leon call her? Miss Paula or whatever?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is, I'll say it right now, Vicky Berlin in this is great.
Yeah.
Paula is the worst character.
Yeah.
Don't let it fool you.
Mm-hmm.
She is the worst person in this fucking movie.
Yep.
And the reason is because she will just go wherever is most convenient for her.
Yeah.
And she's
absolutely,
and we'll see it in a second when she fires that one guy, but she is like the person who you're like, she will fucking stab you in the back.
She's not an ally
to make €1
to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's fucking garbage.
Yep.
She is what I think of when I think of most like HR people. Is like they're just snakes that the C-suite class releases on the public.
Yeah.
You know,
it's because when you give someone who doesn't really have any real authority, but you give them a modicum of power, and then a few people under them, HR, and that's it,
and not enough to do, so they're just kind of like, and also, honestly, no skill or talent. In anything.
Nothing. No,
I'm sure Vicky, like Paula, is nice to people, but her skill and talent is to be a spineless fucking worm to rich people.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Anyway, but there's this fucking amazing scene where she's giving like the lecture before all the people kind of inhabit the yacht to the group. And you see this is very pointed that like all of the crew staff are white. And then you cut to all of the below deck staff who are people of color, mostly Filipino women. And there's where she's like, and she's so fucking good. This woman makes her so despicable, but when she's like, if you do a really good job, you could make a huge tip. And then all of the white people are like dancing and screaming like money, money, money. and you can, and then it cuts below deck.
Yeah.
And all of the people are like looking at the roof as they stomp over their heads, which it's such a that stuff is
Parasite
great.
Parasite on a boat.
Like that stuff is great because like it's so absurdly over the top with the way they react. I love it. It's awesome. And then we get Yaya and Carl sunbathing, and the crewman who takes his shirt off, and that Carl complains to Paula, and she fucking straight up fires him.
Yeah.
Which is the first indication that you're like, this woman is a fucking snake.
Yeah. When they start with that kind of power dynamic, even between the quote unquote serving class and then the guest class, it tries to do the we are all equal thing. Mm-hmm. But really it just means that we are all equally bad.
Yeah.
And that was the fun part, to see that you can be poor and be an asshole. You can be rich and be an asshole, and really like it's just each one for themselves. Yeah.
Well, it's still like regardless of like who you are on this yacht, there's still like a very strict hierarchy, right? Yeah, I don't know. Like the guests are at the top basically, followed by Woody Harrelson, the captain who will not do his job.
My God.
The assistant captain, and then the white serving crew. And then the people of color who are the cleaning crew and toilet managers, right? Yeah. Which, because later on the island, we saw Paula immediately snaps into that. And that's what's so refreshing about the island, is that Dolly De Leon reverses the whole thing, basically, which is very clear. It's not subtle at all.
What's her name? Abigail?
Abigail.
Yeah.
Dolly De Leon's character. Yeah.
Filipina queen.
She's fucking
rules.
Movie, yeah.
She's so good in this.
Can't believe she was not nominated for an Academy Award. Would have been incredible.
Damn.
Yeah.
This movie, I know what it's doing with that, like, rich people have that fucking uncontrollable degradation kink, and like we should like embarrass them for having their money, and they're in on the joke, guys, because like they want to be made fun of, because look how rich and like comfortable they are, that it's okay to like give them a scathing review for having so much money. I think it just misses the point that like the director's other movies kind of do by being more nuanced, by being more softer. Yeah. Like Force Majeure comes to mind just for that one scene where it's, which is the main scene, where the father just kind of abandons his family.
I've never seen it. Yeah.
So they're just at a ski lodge, and there's an avalanche, and the guy's like, "Oh, look out!" and he just fucking bolts. Yeah. And his wife stands and then shields her children with her own body. Yeah. Then everything passes. Everything's normal. No one's hurt. They get up from the snowy debris, and the dad's like way in the other corner. He's gone. And the kids are like, "Where's Daddy?" Oh. And that's the rest of the film. Yeah. Just being in vacation and then chatting about it. There's a Americanized version with Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Yeah. Great. But that's all it takes. They don't have to keep hammering on the point of like men. Motherhood. Family values. Yeah. And I feel like this movie screamed that shit at me every 5 minutes. And it's a real like... # makes you think TM.
You've gotten the joke long before the film ends.
Yeah.
And then it feels like someone is telling you the same joke again.
Exactly.
And you're like, no, I got it. Like, I got it the first time.
I get the rich or bad. I get it.
I want to point out one of my favorite scenes too is like this scene where the woman makes everyone go for a swim.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's brilliant.
There is this really amazing kind of, she's chatting with like this young crew member who's great, whose name I don't remember.
Yeah.
But who's just like incapable of saying no.
Yeah.
But this woman has no conception of like the consequence.
The power she has.
Yeah,
over
and
her.
but she has no conception that like, well, for that young girl, there would be consequences to this. Right? She can't just like
say no and fuck off. Yeah.
Like the way this like young actress is great because like the way she eventually is like, she like struggles so hard to and says no.
Yeah.
That the older French woman, you hear her this like subtle tone where she's like, "Did you say no to me?" Yeah. And it's like, it's kind of scary, but it's also amazing. That scene I think is so great. It's just like she has no conception of what it is like to not be a wealthy person, essentially. And then, okay, I did not notice this the first time I watched it, but it obviously makes total sense. I'm sure many other people noticed it. But now that I watched it with subtitles, when Paula calls down to the kitchen and she's like, the entire staff has to go swimming. The cook says, he's like, we don't have 30 minutes. If we let this food sit, it'll go bad.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that the first time.
Exactly.
And the French woman causes her own, and then
demise.
She's the one who gets totally fucked up. And
brilliant.
Like, yeah, it's like that stuff. I really like that.
The consequences of their actions.
She has like an ultimately worse consequence, basically. But I think that scene is so fucking good.
So tight.
And then I want to talk about before we get to the captain's dinner. Let's talk about the captain.
Yeah.
Played by Woody Harrelson.
What a choice, baby.
The dumbest character in this entire, like, not dumb as a person, but like kind of the most dumbly conceptualized character in my opinion. However, Woody Harrelson giving an all-time, could I not be in most scenes performance?
Yeah.
You know?
Locking in.
I want to speculate that there's most of the time he's locked in a room and he won't come out because he's a drunken asshole.
Yeah.
What I would guess is that this film was shot in COVID. And he was being, I think, the only American in the cast. He probably, there might have been some problems to have him actually be on set, kind of.
Physically,
so for most of the film, except for like one sequence, he's like behind a door yelling, which is great. Like Woody Harrelson is just being Woody Harrelson in this. And then we get to the captain's dinner, and he's finally emerged being Woody. And there's this bit where this woman, for like the third time, she like approaches him and she's like, I noticed that the sails are dirty. Yeah. And he's like, he's the only person who will be like, there's no sails on this boat. It's a motorized boat. And this is again, another one of the brilliant subtleties is when this woman, she can't hear "you're wrong" as an answer. And so she goes to her husband and she's like, no, the boat we looked at in the brochure had sails, so this one must also have sails, even though it's like the dumbest shit. And what it reminded me of, as someone who used to work in food service for where people of the wealthier class would frequent,
crazy rich Aryans, am I right?
Yeah, it didn't happen often, but it was always pleasurable when someone would come in and be like, I was here 2 weeks ago and I had this thing and it was amazing and I noticed that you don't have it. And it's always fun to be like, we've never had that thing.
What, did they dissociate that they had a pie?
We've never had the thing you're talking about, so dude. I'm not sure where you had that. And then they would always be like, no, I'm sure you have it. And then you'd have to be like, I guess we don't have it today.
I guarantee it, miss. I've been here longer than 2 weeks.
There's like, yeah. It's like, I was here 2 weeks ago, actually. You weren't, but I was. But like, it's always funny to see and it does. I don't think it has to do with wealth. It's a certain type of person who just is like, well, I can't be wrong. Like,
yeah. It'll ruin their goddamn day.
It's the Seymour Skinner meme of just being like, no, the children are wrong on this one. It's like it's
Yeah.
such an interesting behavioral trait of some people, which is fantastic.
Dude. Yep.
And yeah, when I was working at this place, it was you'd have that a couple times a year where people were like, oh, I definitely had this, and you're like, no, you definitely didn't, but that's all right.
It's that misplaced confidence that you can't help but admire.
Yeah.
Wow, you just get through the day with all that gusto.
And also, it's like you this person, it's like you go to like 7 pastry shops a week, and you just don't remember that this is not the one you went to. Basically.
Yeah.
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 Good times. I miss it a lot.
Oh no, I left my gold pouch elsewhere.
I left my gold bullion a different shop. Oh dear. Did you happen to pick up any bricks of solid gold?
Make sure it is touching my cake.
Yeah, put it in the lost and found.
Yeah.
And then we get to the captain's dinner.
That's right.
Where it all goes wild. I really love this film, the exteriors were shot on an actual yacht. The interiors were built, and as they do on a lot of these, they built it on a gigantic gimbal so they could shake the actual thing. I really love, like, right before, there's just an amazing collection of shots just before the captain's dinner with, like, you're kind of like looking through a room and it's kind of like moving and stuff. And it's like this very subtle, like, cool thing that he does to set up that it's like, you know, stormy skies coming up. And also, like, there's this thing during the captain's dinner where everyone gets sick, where there's just this baby screaming.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
You didn't notice?
I didn't.
There's just a baby just screaming. And for the whole time, I'm like, I have not seen a baby in this film. And then you do end up seeing a baby in the background. But I was like, where is this fucking baby? And yeah, it's cool.
The rich, they do bring babies to luxury yachts.
Hey, look, if you're a baby, I'm just saying there is no reason you can't also be rich.
You know what? That's how it starts.
Yeah.
Generational baby.
Baby's getting that money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the parody level that, like, cranks it up to 100.
Yeah, I love it. I love it too.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That Euro art satire where it's just full out gross.
This is what I said. We were talking about. This is what I said about Vice. Is like, I wish it was silly. Like,
you know what I mean, though?
Yeah.
I wanted this movie to be The Big Short, but it ended up being The Vice.
Yeah. No, it ended up being way goofier than that.
Yeah. Like, it tried to, like, do a thing, and I know it can. It can get to the level where you're like, holy shit, that was so fucking clever and so funny at the same time.
Yeah.
But then it's okay. It held my hand.
It gets a
for
little
3 hours.
It gets a little juvenile. I have to say, though, like, there's this cut that makes me laugh every time, and they use this amazing song by the band Refused, this Swedish band who are like a punk band. That song apparently just recently, Refused was like, we should make more money off of this because it was in The Bear as well.
Right.
And it's a great song. It's called New Noise, I think. Yeah, whatever. But there's this cut where it, like, cuts to the toilet overflowing, but it looks like a horror film, and the toilet is just puking out, like, brown
and it's like sliding
water.
Left to right.
And also, there's a couple cuts where the I think it happens 3 times where the boat tilts one way, and the same cart smashes against the same wall.
Yep. Oh God.
Like, so he said in this interview that I read, with the same one where he said people must think I'm a misanthrope. Let me see. Sorry, if I have the interviewer. I think it's Alyssa Wilkinson. It's in Vox, so do with that what you will. But someone who I read often. She mentioned this thing where she's like, you have a real talent of putting the camera on a thing and letting it linger or catch something for so long that it becomes funny.
Yeah,
like
you
just
tension.
Yeah, and you just, like, he talked about the way that, like, if you let it just sit for a little longer than is comfortable, the kind of, like, awkwardness makes it funny. And there's lots of shots in this where you're just, like, very static, and it becomes kind of sillier the more you look at it. And, like, that's one where you're, like, looking down this, like, long hall, and this cart just shoots across it and smashes into the wall.
Yeah.
And then that happens before any of the shit and the puke, and then it happens again, and it's like just it's the same thing, but it's so funny. And he also there's the one of the funniest shots. I think it's like hilarious. So the couple the next morning in the aftermath, when everything is calmed down, the yacht is attacked by pirates. And this couple, they throw a grenade onto the deck, and the couple pick it up, who are,
upholders of democracy.
Yeah. And they're like, is this one of our upholding of democracy things?
Tools.
Tools that uphold democracy worldwide. And it blows up, but you see the entire yacht shot from far away, and this little puff of smoke,
and nothing happens. It's so great.
But then you just linger on the yacht, and it becomes so funny.
Yeah.
Because you kind of know what's going to happen, and the yacht just explodes.
Boof. Yeah, in the most obscene way too. It's great.
It's massive.
Excellent payoff.
Yeah.
100%.
And that leads to the third point in the triangle of sadness, which is the island, where Yaya and
That's
Carl,
right.
Miss Paula, a new character who is immediately accused of being a pirate, likely because he's black. And it's never really he says he worked in the engine room, but it's never really determined whether he was actually a pirate or not.
Right.
Although he does sort of confess later. Dimitri, played by Zlatko Buric, who I have to point out, he is in all of Nicholas Winding Refn's Pusher films.
Oh, wow.
And he's also in Copenhagen Cowboy.
Oh,
so
sick.
he's a Scandinavian star, even though I believe he's Croatian.
Oh,
Whatever.
damn.
The German woman in Den Wolken, who can only say that.
In den
Wolken. Which means in the clouds, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Jarmo, the single billionaire who's totally useless.
Yep.
And then later, Abigail washes up in the lifeboat. Yeah. So that's the island.
Yeah. So this is the third act, which, look, first act, incredible.
There's an hour left in this movie.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
So, but it starts with this unmatched opening, right? Like, we love the H&M scene. We love the pace of the second one, the gross.
Most of the second, most of the yacht, I think, is great.
Right. And then the good pace, and then by the time you get to the third one, that is the part that's meant to be the now they're on their own. This is where it should have the most amount of tension or challenges, but it just takes the biggest fucking nosedive in the third act for me.
I agree.
And I'm sorry. It's like the island scene should have been fucking 15 minutes tops. Yeah. And it should just been boom, 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 boom. Oh my God, what the fuck happened at the end? And instead, it's this let's braid each other's hair and go fucking fishing in this elongated fucking misfire of a third act where you kind of leave it to the audience to be I don't know, are they just on a resort island or not?
I think you could trim 15 minutes out of this part.
Trim the fat.
Yeah.
That's it.
Abigail washes up in the lifeboat and immediately takes over the movie. This is where Dolly DeLeon fucking absolutely shines.
Yeah.
And she has some of the best lines in the film because of it.
Yeah.
But though the rest of it, outside of a few moments of Dolly DeLeon's brilliance, is kind of not that interesting.
It's kind of toothless.
By the time she's getting sexual favors from Carl for pretzels, it's kind of I don't I get it. I get the fucking thing,
Yeah.
Even though late in the film, and I like the ending, but late in the film she has a funny line and stuff, but it's come on,
We get it.
And there's funny bits, but
there's some really funny bits, right? With the donkey and the fucking...
The donkey's kind of funny.
Her becoming I'm the captain now, tossing the little pieces of octopus at the crowd.
That is hilarious.
Beautiful.
The part where she's like, who am I? The greatest line delivery she has is when Vicky Berlin is well, on the yacht, and she's like, what yacht? Where's the yacht? And she's
toilet manager yacht. Here, captain.
Here, captain. Yeah.
Damn, bitch.
So amazing.
So fucking powerful.
And just speaking of Madame Paula being the worst person.
Oh yeah.
It is such a great feeling when Abigail is that's mine, and she keeps covering it with her hands as she tries to grab it. And she's it's mine.
Mm-mm.
I did all the work.
So good.
And then so basically, Dolly DeLeon takes over the camp. Paula, who is spineless, completely capitulates to her.
Yeah.
And Yaya also does as well.
Yeah.
Essentially, all of the men who are completely useless can they're basically,
if you're not hot, you're kind of wasted.
They're at the beck and call of the women essentially.
So the currency on the island is attractiveness.
Becomes Carl's attractiveness.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's funny, and it's like obviously true to life to a great degree, that when you have money and power on the ship, let's say, and you are objectively a terrible person, and you've put that power and abused someone without money, and so when that poor person gets money, you think that they would bring that empathy with them, but Abigail's character is like, nah,
kind of likes
still
the power.
bitch.
Yeah, and you can see Dimitri completely changes too. He's like, he becomes like a little puppy dog to them essentially.
Yeah,
but then like Carl has nothing to bargain with except
Carl's
his looks,
always been
right?
a little bitch.
Yeah, well, he's not smart and he doesn't have anything else. He can't do anything else. It's still fine though, and then we eventually realize it's like they're not on an isolated island.
But I don't know if we know that as a fact or not, and that is the fun part, right?
Yeah.
Are people just hallucinating and like thinking that they're talking to like a vendor of purses and bags and stuff, or is it?
Yeah.
Are they literally just 2 minutes away from a fancy resort?
Yeah.
But they're thinking that they're.
Let's talk about
stranded.
the ending then. There's a lot of funny stuff that happens on the island. A lot of it, I have to say, like we can skip over because it's just not very propulsive to the plot at all. Eventually, like Dolly DeLone is sleeping with Carl. Carl is getting his pretzels, and his fish, and Yaya does not enjoy this, essentially, because Yaya has now lost all of the power she had over Carl in the first scene. Yeah, you know, Yaya is like, I'm gonna go for a hike. I'm gonna go over the top of the mountain and kind of look around. And Abigail says, "Oh, I'll come with you." I want to talk about what is happening here. A couple things about what is happening. Okay, they descend down the other side of the island and find that there's an elevator up to a resort. They're on this little private beach. Right. And Yaya says, like, finally we can go home. I can regain all the power I had. She says, I really hate it. Okay, there's a line she has where she's like, Abigail, you can come and work for me, which I think was added in post. Because Yaya is completely turned away. You don't see her mouth. You don't see her actually talking. But I think it's added after the fact. Yeah. And I think that was too much. I think it's not subtle enough.
That's why I think that maybe it's not real and that it's in their imagination. And maybe it's for the audience that there really is no elevator. That's my theory.
That's your theory about the ending?
There's only two, right? One, they're on a real resort island, or two, they're not. So in the instance that they've been running and they haven't eaten and they're dehydrated and they're hallucinating.
They could also be, sorry, you're completely ignoring the fact that they could also be in a totally multiversal situation.
All right. The Mjolnir will find the righteous one towards the end, okay? But for now, they've been running and Abigail, the older lady, is like, fuck, if there really is an elevator, then all of my power goes away.
I go back to being toilet manager.
And so I'm just going to kill this bitch right now.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, for Yaya, she's like, it might be like a state of relief because now she's going to get all her power back. Or this is just a collective fucking hallucination where her first thing is to revert back to being an asshole. Hey, you can come work for me when we go back to the island.
I don't think that I don't think that there's like a hallucination to it. I think Abigail suspects that they're not on an isolated island already. Mm-hmm. And she goes with Yaya because she thinks she might have to control any contingency, which would involve killing Yaya anyway.
Totally.
And
to keep that power going for as long as she can.
Yeah.
She enjoys it.
Yeah. And I think, in the end where Carl is running through the underbrush, I think Abigail has killed Yaya with a rock. And I think she's gone back and is going to kill the rest of them.
Why do you think he's running? And where do you think
I think he found out that Abigail killed Yaya. And Abigail's going to kill him.
Okay, interesting.
I know you took it different. Now
so that's what makes this movie fun.
I want to explain why I thought that, but I still kind of do think it.
Go ahead.
But I was mistaken. In my first remembrance of the film, Carl's running through the underbrush. It's a great shot. Shot. I love the ending. It's a fantastic ending.
Absolutely.
He's running through the underbrush, and I thought he looked back as he goes, but he doesn't actually.
No.
So I thought that for the longest time until I rewatched it.
No, so just before they show Carl running, they show us that German lady who only speaks 3 words in the Vulcan, quote unquote, hallucinating or really seeing a merchant who's selling purses.
Yeah. That's before you even find the elevator.
Yeah. All this is just happening on the island away from Abigail and Yaya and Carl.
Yeah, and the German woman has had a stroke and she can't communicate. She can only say one sentence, which is the irony of the guy
situation.
coming across her.
Yeah, and nobody else.
Nobody else.
And so I'm guessing shortly after that guy might have come across other people because she can scream. She could have alerted the rest of the gang that, is this
also,
fucking guy real?
They wouldn't necessarily be that far away.
Not that far away, right? So let's say Carl now knows that they are on a resort.
Mm-hmm.
And he's running towards Abigail and Yaya to save Yaya. Okay? Now that he knows that it's real.
That's a very plausible explanation. I could buy that too.
Or, on the other hand, if he doesn't know that it's real, that if like he never comes across the vendor, he still thinks that they're stranded. But he, in a flash, realizes that Yaya might hurt Abigail. He's running to save the older lady because she has more power on the island. She's the hunter. She's the feeder. And he's always been kind of a beta cuck, just kind of drawn to power no matter where. So he's drawn to the beautiful, model who supports him in that side of the world. And here he's drawn to the powerful rich lady who's feeding him on this island. So to him, he's just running to save one or the other. And for us as the audience, it's fun to imagine whether it's a real resort or not.
You would have to question whether Carl prefers being on the island or going back to civilization.
But this is assuming that they are stranded. Yeah. If they're stranded, he is definitely running to save Abigail and not Yaya. Because he's like, who's going to find an octopus for me, bro? Not this model girl.
Yeah, she's useless.
She's useless there.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see his motivations in the way that every single person is the worst person on the island.
It's so funny because Abigail has all this power. And like, I agree that look, I can't fish with my hands. I can't catch an octopus or anything like that.
Yeah.
But even these fucking useless dopes, it's like, you can't learn how to build a fucking fire. Like, it's not that hard, Like, at least learn how to do that. Like learn how to make usefulness of yourself, right? But they don't even do that.
No, they don't even think. Forget acting. You said that when you realize there's a fucking donkey somewhere, there's got to be people.
Yeah.
How did the donkey come out?
And also, that I didn't notice myself. I read that somewhere on the internet that they were like, it should have clocked, like, if they were smart, they would have clocked that like a donkey is largely a domesticated animal that's probably near people.
Yeah.
And then Carl is also digging through all of this trash that's like pretty new. And it's not just like, it's not like it washed up over years and years. It's like fairly new stuff.
It's like plastic. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, it's interesting because like there's so many things where it's like eventually the other thing too, right, that I question about the ending in general. The resort is real, whatever, right? When they go down there, there's all these like sea-doos and things.
Yeah.
Wouldn't those people go around the island?
Wouldn't they have come around? It's been 3 days.
Like wouldn't
no
you
one
see?
Found him?
Wouldn't you see? Like, wouldn't they? They're in the Mediterranean. Like, wouldn't they see other boats and stuff? And also, I've seen Captain Phillips. I'm pretty sure those lifeboats have like GPS distress signal things on them.
Yeah, come on, right?
Yeah.
But
like I understand.
But yeah, let's assume the worst case,
film,
and it's gone away in the water or whatever, and they've lost the.
Yeah.
But and to the point that the rich are so rich that even their secluded parts are hella secluded for privacy.
Yeah, maybe.
And that you wouldn't go there without reason, without having modes of communication. So if you wash up ashore, enjoy that privacy for as long as you're gonna fucking be there without anyone coming back.
My point is, this movie makes no fucking sense. No,
no,
that's Triangle of Sadness. It's a
sick
good
ending,
movie.
Excellent starting, gross, memorable middle, and then just like the third act. If it was
some
just
real
tight,
rickety bits.
If it was just like give it a little chef kiss and like tighten it up, best movie.
I also think like I may have said this in the Academy Award episode, but like. This movie being nominated for Best Original Screenplay really frustrates me because I don't.
Yeah, at the fucking
I don't think it's a particularly well written.
No, but that's the irony.
Kind of tight screenplay. Like director, sure. Like I think it's a very well directed film.
Yeah.
But like all of the problems are in this, the writing of it, the conception of the story, and also in the kind of refusal to drop certain parts of it.
I know.
And that kind of frustrates me because I'm like, I don't know if I agree, but it's a good movie.
It's a fun movie.
It's a fun movie to speculate about.
In our original, like, whatever podcast we did, and we were talking about, like, oh man, it's fucking people are gonna feel real smart when they come up with theories for this thing, but it's not about dumb people or smart people. It's just about having fun with it. It doesn't even have to be high-minded. And all these reviews that are like, isn't this the cleverest fucking thing? That's what's annoying.
What's annoying about it is like...
It's the glorifying of like fairly fun plot.
Yeah, like I think that like the annoying part of it is like the, you know, people being like, God, yeah, rich people are dumb. And it's like such an... it kind of... lets people off the hook for having a very unnuanced idea of what the movie could kind of be about.
It's not scathing enough to like inspire any real change, which I know this movie's not trying to do.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice if it did punish them, because ultimately all the rich people make it out. Like they live.
Assumedly so,
they
unless I'm correct about my ending. But it's like, I don't know. I just don't think...
Even when they fuck up and wash ashore, they're fine.
But I think maybe people give it more like moral, ethical, or thematic weight than it's delivering because of the popular sentiment that rich people equal bad.
Right, eat the rich.
And it's and that kind of stuff, which Saltburn is a kind of a meaningless movie, but at least it's like so goofy. Yeah. And at the center of Saltburn, you have like this relationship between these two men that at least forms the, you know, and this movie, it's so interesting because Ruben Ostlund said, he's like, I read like these like sociological studies and stuff to think about what's at play here. And I'm like, that kind of shows in an interesting way.
Like Parasite.
And like what you were talking about Carl, like beauty being his only currency on the island and stuff. That stuff is very interesting. But I do think you can't really make a movie with that all like without it detracting from being like because I don't care about any of these characters really.
Totally.
They all become kind of assholes, but also like I don't really strongly identify with them. So I think that his kind of academicness takes away from having an emotional feeling about the movie that isn't just like eat the rich, you know? Which I think is like such honestly, I just think is kind of a boring theme.
Because the payoff's not fun enough. Or like not satisfying enough like Parasite is.
Yeah, like I don't think it's saying enough, right? I think Parasite
it's posture. It's like, rich bad. Pointing fingers at this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about it, bro? Like, everybody agrees with this premise.
Like, which I think what
everybody agrees, rich bad.
I think that's what like Succession is so good at, is that like
because they're all punished.
They're punished in a
by punished I mean like they are still suffering in their head, even though they're all fucking billionaires.
And the thing that
they all end up rich, but they're still upset and depressed out for what?
The thing that's so interesting too is like from our standpoint, these people are wealthy beyond our imaginations kind of, and yet it's so insane. All right, I'm going to spoil the end of Succession here for anyone who hasn't seen it, so if you don't want me to I'm going to spoil the end of it. It's so insane how depressed all of them are at the end, despite making like billions, a cool 40 bill, you know?
Billions.
And like that's I think that's so interesting because 40 billion to them is just frivolous.
But it's not money that they've never wanted money. They wanted power.
And to us, we can see that it's such a sick way of being, right?
But then ultimately it is about power. Even on the island, what are they going to do with all the money? It's useless. So power is the ultimate like decider of their fates.
Of course.
And it's like being cuckolded by their dad, even through the grave in Succession, where they're like, just the worst guy they thought imaginable is now the emperor, and now they all have to bow down to him. Yeah,
and I don't know. I find that this movie, what I think is that like maybe people are like taking this movie to be way smarter than it is. And I just don't think it is. And that doesn't mean I think it's a bad movie. I just think it's like,
no, I just think
I like the simplistic aspects of it a lot more. Yeah.
I know there's that 1 extra % there somewhere which would make it a fucking diamond of a film.
Can I rephrase that?
Yeah.
What I just said, sorry, is like, I think people, because of the popular sentiment, are imposing this movie with a moral stance that it's not taking.
Right.
That it's actually not taking that stance.
Right.
That's what I think. And that frustrates me more than the film itself.
Because it leaves it open-ended, right?
A little bit, yeah.
And that's so fun. That's what's exciting about it.
Yeah.
It's also, I want to say, excellent year. This year when this movie came out.
22, yeah.
So many fucking bangers. Yeah. So many incredible films all at the same time. And this like rose to fame, I think, because it just rode the wave of like being out at the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. I think one of the weirdest, like a lot of movies we've actually talked about or mentioned, maybe not done an episode on, but like one of the worst things about this movie is it was nominated for Best Picture. Because if it hadn't been, I don't even think I would personally be as incensed about it the way that I was or have been. Mm-hmm. If it just ended up being like, this is one of the best movies of the year that was nominated for no real awards, you'd be like, yeah, it kind of is. Yeah.
And what if it was just a silent Netflix release or on Prime or some shit?
Like Best Picture maybe imbues it with a sort of prestige that is not really warranted. You know, it's one of the most unserious films from that year. You know,
I just for that first act, I would give it some kind of award.
Oh, it's brilliant! Yeah.
So fucking.
There's
beautiful.
a lot to love about this film. Yeah. I think that's why we did an episode on it.
But
I also think like the other big mistake, obviously, is its length. Because if it wasn't so fucking long, it'd be so rewatchable.
Yeah.
Like I rewatched it and I really enjoyed it, and you had it on too, and I think I was sitting watching it with you, and because it's like some parts of it are just so fucking there's so many scenes, there's so many lines that are quotable, and like it's got that.
It's the perfect group rewatch movie. It is the perfect like throw it on when you're at a party movie at a dinner. Yeah. Maybe don't be eating curry or something, but like watch it. Yeah. Watch it when you're having drinks. It's so fun. And towards the end, you have a H&M face instead of a Balenciaga face.
But also like those moments that suck in the last hour or so, it's like you can just check out. You can get up. You can get yourself a fucking snack or whatever. Like that's what works for it. Anyway, let's wrap this bitch up. And
shout out to Yaya, who's fucking bad bitch. Did such a great job in the movie.
Charbli Dean, rest in peace. You were
shocking.
It's such a fucking brutal. Yeah.
And up and coming actor Carl Harris Dickinson.
There's a line he has, like, it's such a brilliant delivery where he's like, well, don't you think they'll find out that you're buying sex with the common food? It's like, such a wonderful fucking guy.
Hell yeah.
Love him.
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson, can't wait for your next...
Another up-and-coming actor, Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, can't wait for your next Behind the Door performance. Triangle of Sadness, good movie.
Check it out.
Have changed my mind a little bit about it, but I'm a mature enough adult to admit it. All right? Yeah. Thank you. Also, Civil War was good. All right, bye.
Bye.